Remember the last video where we talked about corruption in the arms trade? Well, it's been able to flourish for so long because people at all levels and parts of the system use secrecy, overclassification, and red tape. Basically, any and all reasons not to tell you a damn thing. Information is power, and when it has to do with the arms trade, this also means lots and lots of money.
Last week, the UK convened a donor conference which raised weapons and equipment for Ukraine worth over £1.5 billion, or 2.5 million items of military kit.
And when our governments say that the secrecy and red tape is a matter of national security, they're basically saying, sure, we'll share the information with you, but only when you need it, and we determine when you need it. Hello, if the people want to know at all times, then we should know at all times.
But hey, this is a complicated part of national security and defense, so let's get into it.
Welcome back to the 7 myths that sustain the global arms trade. In this 7-part video series, we'll explore how our defense systems need rethinking and invite you to join the dead community of modern-day peacemakers.
The public has a right to information. This means making sure that the decisions and spending that affect us, the public, are open to public criticism. Nobody wants to see their hard-earned cash used in fraudulent, criminal, and inefficient ways.
To stop any of that happening, we need increased transparency to hold those in power accountable.
We can exercise this right to information via legislation like the Freedom of Information Act, a law that says that public institutions have to answer your questions. Head over to our website at deadone.co and sign up to one of our meetups where we will teach you how to use the Freedom of Information Act request to find out how involved your university is with the global arms trade. We can then teach you how to upload that research to our Universities and Arms database with the support of our community.
Now, we totally understand that politics, especially in this day and age, is a lot like poker, and the last thing you want to do in poker is to divulge information that's going to weaken your position. This huge game of political poker is kept in place thanks to this wonderful thing called classification. These labels determine who can see what. Basically, governments determine what is going to be kept hidden from the public and what departments can have access to the information and what is safe to make public. But we'll talk about that later.
The issue is really shown through the way that truth seekers and whistleblowers are criminalized. Shout out to Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, and public watchdog and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who's still in prison today. And those who are actually breaking national and international law are shielded from the consequences of their actions. Governments and institutions that are willingly giving over information for the general public's best interest are ones we can presume are willing to be held accountable. And accountability means justice. And we can't have justice without the truth.
Now that we've talked about how much classification can muddy the waters, let's talk about what they actually mean. The classification system is organized by the Cabinet Office, the part of the government that supports and works with the Prime Minister. It's a system that works through central and local government and critical national infrastructure, meaning things like agriculture, public health, and security services.
The classification system is also used by the private sector that offers services to the public sector, like private companies that manufacture weapons sold to the government. Right.
The most recent policy about security classification came into effect in 2014, and it outlines 3 main types of classifications: top secret, secret, and official. Top secret is pretty straightforward. If it would be released, then whoever leaks it is liable to cause considerable loss of life, international diplomatic incidents, or severely impact ongoing intelligence operations. You could even be charged with treason. Secret classification is given to information that needs protection against serious threats. If leaked, it could compromise major crime investigations and potentially harm international relations. The last of the three, official, is often attributed to public sector business, operations and services, with many departments and agencies operating exclusively at this level. Now, obviously, not all information can be public knowledge or even available to all relevant public bodies, but embarrassing mistakes or wrongdoings are hidden from even traditional systems of accountability like internal investigative bodies.
Transparency International's Government Defense and Anti-Corruption Index determines whether a government is corrupt or not by how accessible information is about the defense sector and spending, and if this government is actively trying to prevent corruption. This problem is massive and is made worse by things like corporate influence, off-budget spending, policy or legal loopholes, overclassification, and a deep-rooted culture for secrecy.
Burying it under classification, red tape, and limiting who has that permission is a great way to basically ensure that no one has access.
Blow the whistle and you get jail time.
The top reason for all this secrecy? Simple. Old habits die hard. When a small group of select people profit both monetarily and professionally from these levels of blanket secrecy, trust and believe that no one is going to break out and call it out. Also, in this culture of secrecy and the elite few, there is a sense of trust that is grown from these groups not being open to everyone. It's legit like a not-so-secret club.
Another thing to keep in mind is how much money is in this industry. Silence is easily bought, especially when the buying price is high. There's times when blanket secrecy is also used to cover up corruption.
Let's take Project Timberwind as an example. This project was meant to develop nuclear thermal rockets in the 1980s by the US. Initial funding by the Strategic Defense Initiative, also known as Star Wars, from 1987 through 1991 totaled $139 million, which today would be about £289,637,354. It flopped, and their solution was to throw more money into it. The project was then transferred to the Air Force Space Nuclear Thermal Propulsion Program. And guess what? The program underwent an audit in 1992 because people had concerns. These concerns? Well, money was being wasted, and ultimately the project wasn't going anywhere. It became obvious pretty soon that the government needed to involve more scientists and experts to avoid wasting even more money and resources.
A guy named Stephen Aftergood blew the whistle when he realized that something wasn't adding up. This actually led to Aftergood creating the Federation of American Scientists, known as FAS, Government Secrecy Project. The FAS is an American non-profit global policy think tank, working to use science and analysis to make the world more secure. Their ultimate goal is to act as an accountability mechanism, but it's not always guaranteed.
People who would be necessary to complete the project successfully were kept away due to the super secret nature. And the reason for all this secrecy? Well, if it came out that nearly $250 million had been wasted on nuclear thermal rockets, it's not a good look, to say the least.
High secrecy like this means that even if the project fails, no one's going to know about it.
So what have we learned today?
Just because a government project or endeavour is marked as top secret does not mean it can avoid the transparency and accountability mechanisms that create good governance. It makes sense that from an international relations point of view, you wouldn't want to divulge all your secrets and projects. The problem is that not all of us are in the poker game.
At the end of the day, governments and their employees are civil servants, ideally working for the betterment and safekeeping of their fellow citizens. We need to feel like we can trust our country's institutions, its systems, and its people to do what's right. We've nearly reached the final video of this 7-part video series. Make sure you check out video 7 because we will be rounding up everything we have learned and want to inspire you to take action, discussing the myth that now is not the time to take said action.
As ever, give this video a like, hit subscribe and that bell, and we will see you next time. Remember, we ain't dead yet.
Education has no business with machinery that kills people.